The sky dimmed as night draped its velvet cloak over the Dragon Kingdom. Wiren sat quietly outside the castle, her eyes fixed on the pale silver moon. Jimin and Atara stood beside her, concern etched into their faces. They keep asking why she's so scared of the witch. With a heavy heart, Wiren revealed that when she was just a child, Wiren was playing by herself near a babbling brook when she caught sight of a beautiful white rabbit hopping through the dappled sunlight. Excited by the sight of the graceful creature, Wiren chased after the rabbit, her laughter bubbling with joy. The rabbit led Wiren deeper and deeper into the heart of the forest, where the trees grew tall and dense, casting long shadows over the forest floor. The air grew cooler, and a sense of unease crept over the little fairy as she realized she had ventured far from her familiar surroundings. Just as Wiren was about to turn back, she heard a soft whisper calling her name. She spun around, her heart pounding in her chest, and saw a figure emerging from the shadows. It was a creepy old lady with a twisted grin on her wrinkled face, her eyes gleaming with malice. Wiren's voice caught in her throat as the old lady approached her, her gnarled hands reaching out to grasp the fairy's delicate wings. With a swift motion, the witch sliced off Wiren's wings with a sharp blade, causing the tiny fairy to cry out in pain and shock. As Wiren gazed up at the witch in horror, she heard the cackling voice of the old hag as she placed a curse upon the fairy. "Theodora, you shall die on the eve of your 20th birthday," the witch hissed, her voice dripping with malevolence. "Theodora, and I shall regain my youth and beauty for forever as you wither away." The cracks and wrinkles of her face vanished, her gray hairs become dark as she cursed. "Yn." The little flower fairy trembled in fear as the witch vanished into the shadows, leaving her alone and vulnerable in the dark forest. Without her wings, Wiren felt lost and helpless, unsure of how she would ever find her way back home. But then her father found her and take her home. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, as Wiren wandered aimlessly through the forest, her once cheerful spirit now weighed down by the weight of the witch's curse. She watched as the seasons changed around her, the vibrant colors of the forest fading into a dull and lifeless palette. But despite the doom that hung over her, Wiren refused to give up hope. She sought out the wise old owl, who lived in a hollow tree, hoping to find a way to break the witch's curse and regain her lost wings. The owl listened intently to Wiren's tale of woe, his wise eyes twinkling with sympathy. He told her how the curse could be broken. "Jimin, how will you break the curse?" Wiren looked up at him. His eyes were a mix of curiosity and sadness. Atara sat still, shocked and teary-eyed. "Wiren, if I marry my true love on my 20th birthday, the curse will break," Wiren said with a faint smile. Atara leaned in. "Atara, and then what happened?" "Wiren, everyone in the magic land started searching for my true love. The crown prince, Jungkook, and I were childhood friends. We used to play together, so everyone assumed he was the one. Wiren, the king arranged our marriage when I was 8, and Jungkook was 11. We grew up believing we belonged together." She paused, then added softly, "But when I grew up, I realized, Jungkook isn't my true love, he's my true friend." Jimin leaned forward. "Jimin, did you find your true love?" Atara smiled knowingly. "Atara, it's our king." Wiren nodded, her eyes turning dreamy. "Wiren, yes, fate brought me here to the Dragon King, and only then did I understand what love truly feels like." "Jimin, then we must stop the wedding." "Yn, I don't know what fate has planned for me anymore," she whispered, leaning back against the pillar with a sigh. "Jimin, everything will be fine. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we stop this madness," he assured her. Wiren nodded, and everyone left for their rooms. The moon comes to the middle of the night sky. The armies of fairies are heading to the Dragon Land. The Crown Prince Jungkook is leading the team. He's sitting on Phoenix. Phoenix is silently flying across the hills and rivers with his big white wings. This flying horse can talk, and sometimes he can see the glimpse of future. He's clearly seeing the danger of the fairy. "Phoenix, your highness, the flower fairy is in darkness, deep darkness. Jungkook, we need to reach there as soon as possible. The warriors from Magic Land are going to get their flower fairy from the dragons. It's rare for fairies to get involved in a war as they're peace-loving, but to protect their flower fairy, they declares war with the dragons. Now the army is going to the dragon land. They start their journey 7 days ago, and now they'll reach there in the morning. Back in the dragon castle, Wiren paused in the doorway, her eyes narrowing when she saw Taehyung inside her room, rifling through her things. Wiren, what are you doing? She asked sharply. Taehyung turned, startled. Taehyung, nothing. She folded her arms. Wiren, you came into my room without permission, and you were clearly searching for something. Taehyung, this is my palace. I can go wherever I want, he said coldly. Wiren, but you gave me this room. A true king respects privacy. What were you looking for? Taehyung, I don't owe you an answer. He walked past her, heading for the door, but she grabbed his wrist. Wiren, you came to see if I was working with the wizards, didn't you? You still think I'm a traitor. Taehyung, I had to be sure. As king, I can't risk my people. Wiren, if you think I'm dangerous, then just kill me already. Taehyung, I don't kill the innocent. Wiren, who says I'm innocent? The witch and wizard said I'm behind all this. You've got every reason to kill me. Taehyung, even if you were, I couldn't hurt you, he murmured. Wiren, and why not? Taehyung, because you. He paused, his eyes flickering. Wiren, because she urged. Taehyung, you saved my kingdom, twice, you brought life here. Wiren, I could destroy it too. That's not a good enough reason. Taehyung, you talk too much, he said, stepping away, but Wiren stepped in front of him again. Wiren, wait, I know the real reason you can't hurt me. She moved closer and placed a hand on his chest. Wiren, it's because you love me, he laughed bitterly. Taehyung, that's hilarious. Didn't I tell you? Love only exists in fairy tales. Wiren leaned closer, her voice a whisper in his ear. Wiren, it is a fairy tale. She whispered and kissed him on his lips, making his heart jump. The Dragon King widened his eyes, feeling the flower fairy's lips against his, but the kiss lasts for only 5 seconds as Taehyung gently pushed her from him. Wiren looked up in his eyes, feeling hurt at his action. Taehyung too was staring at her, but suddenly he pulled her more closer and started kissing her hungrily. Wiren also responds with the same passion. Their breaths mingled in the space between them, hearts racing like drums in a storm. For a fleeting moment, time itself seemed to hesitate, caught between hesitation and desire. Then, without warning, Taehyung cupped Wiren's face in his warm hands, his touch trembling slightly, not from uncertainty, but from the overwhelming flood of emotions he could no longer suppress. He captured her lips in a fierce, soul-stealing kiss, one that spoke of long-held denial and newly awakened longing. His mouth moved against hers with urgency, almost desperate, like he was afraid she might disappear if he let go. The kiss deepened, slow at first, then growing wild, consuming. His fingers threaded through her hair, pulling her closer until not even air dared to slip between them. She melted into him, her hands gripping the fabric of his shirt as if grounding herself against the dizzying rush of warmth that spread through her body. Wiren responded with equal fire, tilting her head to match the rhythm of his lips, soft sighs escaping her throat. Her fingers traced the line of his jaw, then slid to the nape of his neck, sending a shiver down his spine. Their lips danced with passion, lips parted, breath stolen, tongues tangled in a tender war that neither wanted to win. The world around them vanished. There was no war, no throne, no titles, just the Dragon King and his flower fairy, bound by a kiss that had been written in the stars long before they ever knew it. As their lips met, the world seemed to hold its breath. Flowers bloomed wildly across the stone walls, vines curling in joy. Outside the window, moonlight shimmered more brightly, and the wind danced like it was humming a love song through the trees. And in that moment, Taehyung realized this wasn't a fairy tale. This was something far more dangerous, far more beautiful. This was real. Taehyung didn't stop, he couldn't. He pulled Wiren up effortlessly, her legs instinctively wrapping around his waist as he stood, their lips never parting. Her fingers were tangled in his dark locks, his arms firm around her back as he walked them across the room with a hunger in his steps. Their kiss deepened, breaths uneven and desperate. The soft thud of his footsteps was drowned in the symphony of their passion. He reached the edge of the bed and gently laid her down, his body following, hovering above her like a shadow of fire and silk. Wiren's hands found the buttons of his white shirt, and one by one, undid them with trembling fingers. The fabric slipped from his shoulders and fell to the floor, exposing the sculpted strength beneath. Her eyes drank in the sight of him as her hands roamed his skin, mapping out every inch, like a lover learning a new language. Taehyung leaned down, lips trailing from her mouth to her jaw, down to the soft curve of her neck. He found the delicate strap of her dress and slowly unzipped it, letting the fabric fall away from her shoulders like petals in the wind. His kisses followed, soft and reverent, from her collarbone to her bare shoulder, leaving a trail of heat in their wake, their bodies tangled, breaths growing heavier, hearts pounding like thunder, and then a cacophony. A sharp, ominous caw shattered the moment like glass. Dozens of crows gathered outside the window, wings beating furiously against the panes. Their shrill cries pierced the room, a chilling reminder of the world they had momentarily escaped. Taehyung froze, lips still against Wiren's skin. His eyes snapped open. The witch's crows. Reality came crashing down on him like a wave. The promise he made, the price he agreed to pay. His mother. He pulled back abruptly, his breath ragged, his body still aching for her warmth. But his eyes avoided hers. He couldn't face the softness, the trust, the love that might be written there. Taehyung, you should rest. He swallowed hard, voice strained. Wiren looked up at him, confusion and hurt flickering in her eyes, but he didn't meet her gaze. He couldn't. With his head lowered and his heart heavy, Taehyung picked up his shirt, now rumpled on the floor, and quietly stepped away, leaving behind the scent of longing and the echo of a kiss that tasted too much like goodbye. Wiren lay there, still, the room now quiet except for the distant flapping of wings and the sound of her own breath, shaky, shallow, stunned. Her fingers gripped the edge of the blanket, pulling it over herself, but not for warmth. Her skin still burned from his touch, but it was her heart that had turned cold. She turned her head slowly toward the window, watching the black feathers fade into the night, her chest rising and falling with unspoken pain. Something was wrong, she felt it, like a thorn twisting in her chest. The way he looked away from her, the shame in his eyes, the silence he left behind, he didn't say why, but he didn't have to. Her mind, sharp despite the ache, filled in the blanks, the crows, the witch, the whispers she'd tried to ignore, a royal wedding, a sacrifice, a deal made in desperation. Her lips trembled, not from the kiss, but from the weight of truth settling in her bones. Yn, so it was a goodbye kiss after all, she whispered to herself, blinking back the sting behind her eyes. She sat up slowly, her body still aching with the memory of his touch. Her fingertips grazed her shoulder, where his lips had been seconds ago, now just a phantom warmth. A part of her wanted to run after him, to demand answers, to fight, but another part, the deeper, quieter part, knew this was something heavier than love. This was duty, guilt, sacrifice. Wiren drew her knees to her chest and wrapped her arms around them, resting her chin on top. Her eyes, glassy with unshed tears, stared at the door he'd walked out of. Yn, he kissed me like I was everything, then walked away like I was nothing. But even now, she couldn't bring herself to hate him, because that's what love does, it breaks, even when it doesn't want to. Taehyung stood in the shadows of the palace corridor, leaning against a cold marble pillar, with his shirt still unbuttoned, forgotten in his hands. The soft rustling of leaves in the wind outside did nothing to calm the storm inside him. He could still feel her lips on his, her voice, soft and full of wonder, whispering, "It is a fairy tale, gods." He wished it were, but fairy tales didn't come with blood-stained choices and impossible deals. They didn't come with dying mothers, cursed kingdoms, or witches whose hands were as cold as the promises they offered. He clenched his jaw, his knuckles white around the fabric of his shirt. His chest ached not from the intensity of the kiss, but from the aftermath. From the way he saw her eyes searching his, full of light, of trust, right before he turned away like a coward. Taehyung slid down the pillar and sat on the floor, elbows on his knees, fingers buried in his hair, the weight of the crown he hadn't even worn yet pressed down on him. "Taehyung, I made a deal," he murmured bitterly to the empty hallway. "To save one life, I might have destroyed another." He thought of his mother, frail, sick, slowly fading with every sunset. The witch's magic was the only thing keeping her alive now, and the price had always been clear: marriage, loyalty, obedience. He thought he could go through with it, thought he could numb himself enough to walk down that aisle with someone he did not love, for duty, for honor. But then Wiren happened, and with one kiss, she'd set fire to every carefully built wall he had around his heart. He hated himself for it, for kissing her back like that, for letting himself feel for just one night what it could be like to choose love instead of sacrifice. Now he was drowning in guilt, not because he didn't love her, but because he did, and he still had to walk away. He leaned his head back against the cold stone and closed his eyes, whispering her name like a prayer. He had no right to say, "Taehyung, forgive me, princess." As Wiren drifted into a fragile, restless sleep, a voice soft and chilling whispered her name, Wiren. Her eyes flew open. She sat up abruptly, breath caught in her throat, her room bathed in silver moonlight that spilled through the open window. Everything was still, too still. Maybe it was the wind. She closed her eyes again, trying to calm her racing heart, but the voice came once more, louder now, more insistent, like icy fingers trailing down her spine. Yn. This time, there was no mistaking it. She threw the covers aside and crept to the window. Outside, the moon hung high and full, glowing like a watchful eye in the sky. Its light cloaked the garden in pale blue, making every shadow stretch longer than it should. Wiren's breath fogged the glass. Wiren, 2 days left in this world, she murmured, and then, a sudden gust howled through the room, snuffing out every candle in a blink. Darkness fell like a curtain, and when she turned, she wasn't in her room anymore. The scent of old stone and damp earth filled her lungs. She stood in a corridor she didn't recognize, ancient, decayed, steeped in dread. Cracked walls loomed around her, draped in webs that trembled as if something had just passed through them. Dim candles flickered along the walls, their flames unnaturally blue. This isn't the dragon's castle, Wiren thought, heart hammering. This place, it reeks of curses. A low, guttural laugh echoed through the corridor, cold and mocking. She wasn't alone. With cautious steps, she wandered deeper into the castle, her fingers brushing against the stone as she passed. Whispers began to rise from the shadows, not words, just sounds, lingering, following, judging. Every instinct screamed for her to run. And then, ahead of her, a shape materialized, tall, unmoving, wrapped in black mist. Wiren froze. The shadows peeled back like rotten curtains to reveal a figure with sunken, gleaming eyes and a twisted smile. The witch, Theodora. "Theodora, you dare," the witch hissed, her voice curling like smoke, "to place your lips on my groom." Her smile widened unnaturally, revealing sharpened teeth behind cracked lips. "Theodora, I should rip the wings from your back, shatter your soul, you little flower fairy." She sneered, her cloak billowing as she raised a gnarled hand, energy crackling in her palm. "Theodora, you'll be nothing but petals when I'm done." Wiren backed away, but the shadows were alive, reaching for her ankles, her arms. Her heart pounded like thunder, but she didn't scream. Instead, she inhaled sharply and raised her hand, her fingers glowing with a soft, golden light. Her fear twisted into resolve. "Yn, you don't scare me," she said, her voice trembling but steady. Light burst from her fingertips, blinding and pure, cutting through the dark like the first sunrise. The witch shrieked as the brilliance swallowed her whole, her figure warping and twisting before vanishing in a final, echoing cry. The walls of the castle trembled, cracking, the ceiling groaned, everything began to collapse. And in the next breath Wiren was back, safe. The room was silent once more, her bed untouched, the candles still dark. The moonlight now felt warm, not watchful, comforting. She let out a shaky breath and lay back down, her fingers still faintly glowing. A small sad smile tugged at her lips. "Yn, she's coming for me, and she knows." Her eyes fluttered closed as exhaustion pulled her under again, but even in sleep, her light never fully faded. Meanwhile, Taehyung sat alone in his chamber, the moonlight casting long shadows across the cold floor. He'd tried everything: meditation, pacing, even reading old scrolls to quiet the storm inside him, but nothing worked. His thoughts kept returning to her, to the way her lips trembled, the look in her eyes when he left, the way she hadn't said a single word. and yet it had shattered him. Taehyung, I just need to see her, he whispered to himself, rising to his feet, just once. Slipping past the guards under the cover of silence, Taehyung moved through the palace like a ghost. The halls were empty, the world asleep, only the soft rustle of his robes and the distant howl of the wind followed him. He reached her door and paused, his hand hovered over the handle, heart pounding in his chest. Taehyung, one look, that's all. He pushed the door open slowly, careful not to wake her. She lay there, cocooned in moonlight, her body still and delicate against the silken sheets. At first glance, she seemed peaceful, like a sleeping fairy in a dream spun of starlight. A small smile tugged at his lips. Taehyung, so beautiful. He breathed, stepping closer, his heart aching at the sight. He knelt beside the bed and gently reached out, his fingers brushing against her cheek. Then he froze, her skin burning. His heart dropped. Taehyung, princess, he whispered, panic rising in his chest. He pressed his palm to her forehead far too hot. She stirred weakly, her brows furrowing in discomfort. A faint whimper escaped her lips. Taehyung's eyes widened in alarm. Taehyung, no, no, no. She was burning with fever, and he knew this wasn't just illness. It felt darker, as if something had seeped into her very soul and left a mark. The witch. He clenched his jaw, his breath ragged. Taehyung, she came to you, didn't she? He murmured, as if she could answer. His hands trembled as he brushed damp strands of hair from her face, his heart sinking with every passing second. Taehyung stared down at Wiren, his hands still trembling against her flushed cheek. She whimpered softly, turning her head in her sleep, a single tear slipping from the corner of her eye. His heart cracked. Taehyung, princess, he breathed, brushing the tear away with his thumb. What's happening to you? This wasn't just a fever. He could feel it in the air. It pulsed with magic, heavy and wrong. It clung to her skin like a curse, something ancient and cruel. He had fought wars, killed beasts, burned through entire armies, but this helplessness, it terrified him. She shivered again, her body curling in on itself. Taehyung, no, he whispered, pulling the blanket higher over her shoulders. Stay with me, please. He looked around as if the walls could offer answers. He should call for a healer, but even as the thought came, he remembered the palace healers couldn't even help his mother, and the only one who could was the same one who might have done this, the witch. Taehyung clenched his jaw. Is this her revenge? Did she find out about the kiss? Taehyung swallowed hard and looked down at Wiren again. Her breathing was shallow now, her lips pale. He reached for her hand and pressed it to his chest. Taehyung, you once told me this was a fairy tale, he whispered, voice cracking. Taehyung, but I'm no prince. I don't know how to save you, princess. I only know I want to. He pressed his lips to the back of her hand, letting his eyes close. Taehyung, please, he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. Don't fall now. Not when I've finally realized what you mean to me. There was a tremble in his voice he didn't bother hiding. She couldn't hear him, but he said it anyway. Taehyung, I don't want to marry her. I don't want a kingdom. I just want you. His throat tightened as he looked at her flushed, delicate face, and for the first time in a long time, the Dragon King felt fear. As dawn kissed the horizon, the sky above the Dragon Kingdom shimmered, and for the first time in centuries, it softened from its eternal crimson to a breathtaking blue. It's a beautiful mixture of red and blue. The guards on the high towers paused mid-step, their eyes lifting in silent awe. Whispers rippled through the palace like wind through leaves. Even the dragons, resting in the shadowed cliffs, stirred with low, curious rumbles. Petals from unseen flowers drifted across the courtyards, blooming where none had before. The kingdom, once hardened by fire and ash, felt it. The Dragon King had fallen in love, and the sky remembered what it was like to hope. The storm that brewed in Taehyung's heart had not stilled, not even after a sleepless night by Wiren's bedside. Her fever had calmed, but her breaths were still faint, fragile, like petals trembling in a storm. He stood by the balcony, eyes fixed on the horizon, when the sharp sound of horns echoed through the valley. Blaze ran to him and bowed. Blaze, my kings, the fairies are here. Taehyung, the fairies. The kingdom gates groaned open as Taehyung strode forward, cloaked in fury and control. His steps were heavy, his jaw set. He saw him, Crown Prince Jungkook, surrounded by fairy warriors, golden-winged and armed with blades that shimmered in the morning light. Their arrival was not a visit, it was a demand. Jungkook stood tall, regal in his white and gold, a softness in his eyes that only hardened when they met Taehyung's. Jungkook, where's the flower fairy? Taehyung, I see you brought a huge force, but my only one dragon is enough for them. Jungkook, we're not scared of you. We will fight till our last breath, till you give our flower fairy back. Taehyung smirked and stood in front of Jungkook. Taehyung, your flower fairy. Jungkook, she belongs with us, and I've come to take her home, he said calmly. Taehyung's nostrils flared. Taehyung, she isn't yours to take. Jungkook held his ground. Jungkook, she is my bride. The kingdom made that decision when we were children. We were fated. Taehyung, no. Taehyung snapped, stepping closer, the air heating around him. Taehyung, fate didn't lock her in a cage. Fate didn't ride beside her through fire and storm. I did. The fairy guard stiffened, sensing the tension rising. Jungkook raised a hand to stop them, his voice softer now. Jungkook, she will die, Dragon King. Those 5 words struck harder than any sword. Taehyung's breath caught. Taehyung, what? Jungkook looked away briefly, then back. Jungkook, if Wiren doesn't marry before her 20th birthday, which is day after tomorrow, she will die. It's a curse, cast when she was just a child. Taehyung's world tilted. Taehyung, she never told me. Jungkook, it's real, and if you care for her at all, you'll let her go. The words carved into Taehyung's chest like dragon steel. His heart screamed. Everything in him rebelled, but all he could see was Wiren's pale, fevered face. If letting her go meant saving her, then he would burn himself in silence, even if it tore him apart. With eyes that held a storm, he gave a single, pained nod. Taehyung, take her. Wiren awoke to the sound of rustling wings and soft footsteps. She sat up slowly, her eyes widening when she saw the female dragon guards in her room. Wiren, what's going on? Where's the Dragon King? She asked, heart lurching. The guards didn't answer. Then she saw him, standing by the door, eyes dark, expression unreadable. Wiren, Dragon King, what is this? She whispered, a hopeful smile on her lips. He didn't move. Wiren, why they are here? Taehyung, your soon-to-be husband come to take you from Magic Land. Wiren's heart skips a beat. The Crown Prince. Wiren, I don't want to go back. Taehyung looked at the guards and ordered. Taehyung, help her to walk outside the kingdom. Be careful, she's very weak. The guards nodded and held Wiren by her forearm. Wiren, no, tell them to stop. I don't want to go. Her voice broke as the guards tried to make her weak body stand straight. Taehyung, you have to, he said hoarsely. She freed herself from their grip and stood from the bed, stumbling toward him. Wiren, no, I don't want to marry the Crown Prince. I love you, please. Her hands reached for his, but he stepped back. Taehyung, you'll be safe with him. Wiren, I don't want safe. I want you. Please don't do this. Don't marry her. Don't send me away. She sobbed, the first tears spilling down her cheeks. He clenched his fists so tightly, blood welled beneath his claws. Still, he didn't look at her. Wiren, Tae, please, don't let them take me. But it was too late. He had already ordered the female dragon guards. They appeared at her sides, gentle but firm. Her cries echoed through the stone halls as they pulled her from him. Wiren, Taehyung. She screamed his name, kicking and begging, her voice cracking in agony. Wiren, look at me. Please, I'll die without you. He stood frozen, stone, silent, but inside, he was shattering. Wiren, Taehyung, please stop them. You said I brought life to your kingdom, don't take it from me now. Still, he didn't turn, couldn't, because if he did, he knew he'd fall to his knees and never let her go. So he looked at the floor, jaw trembling, tears silently burning behind his eyes. Wiren's sobs faded down the corridor, her voice breaking like glass until silence swallowed the castle whole. And for the first time in his immortal life, the Dragon King felt like he'd lost everything.